Kazrisk, and you're listening to episode 1 of NukaCast, an all Fallout dedicated podcast with me, one of your co-hosts, Kazrisk, alongside my other co-host, Zakrisk.
Hello.
We are gonna be. We are previously Nintendo podcast hosts. You may have listened to us on Kopai Podcast on YouTube.com/Kazrisk, or SoundCloud.com/Kazrisk or something along those lines. And in recent weeks, we have become just so completely enamored. Well, not in recent weeks, but like we've been the hype train for Fallout 4 has been increasingly growing. We have been Fallout fans for many years. And with the Fallout 4 hype train going along and Fallout 4's very close release, we thought it would be just a fun project and kind of an experimental thing to start this Fallout podcast and discuss the lore of the Fallout universe, the mods that'll be coming to the Fallout game, the gameplay mechanics, the quests, the stories, the business behind things, the DLC that'll be coming, and all of that. I've mentioned in previous propaganda and just like advertisements for this podcast that I'm a very big fan of the Fire Team chat over on IGN, where they talk about Destiny every single week. I thought that was just really unique how they talked about one game every week, and how the community was able to rally around that and discuss like what gun was best, how that mechanic worked, what armor was best, and certain ideas for how the game could be improved through updates. I thought that was really interesting. And there's lots of other games that have podcasts. Fallout does have some other podcasts online when I did some searching. And so I thought we would add to that. And just kind of once a week sit down and talk for about a half hour to an hour about Fallout, whether that be Fallout 4 or maybe taking look back every once in a while on Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and then even the previous entries such as Fallout 1 and 2, Tactics, and so on and so forth. And so I'm joined, like I said, with my brother, Zakrisk, and we're both pretty familiar with the Fallout franchise. We've played quite a bit of it, and we know the mechanics. But we certainly know there's people out there that know this franchise inside and out, perhaps better than we do. Well, definitely better than we do. And we don't think that makes us less qualified or more qualified regardless to talk about the game. We just have a passion for it. And if we by chance make any mistakes or speak ignorantly about something, just have patience in the comment section below. And hopefully you just recognize that we're just here to talk about the game and the franchise and the developers that we love. And so in talking to some other people, for example, on just a thread about the latest Pip-Boy edition, which has been getting lots of unboxings and revealing online, people were criticizing me for being certain fanboys or towards a specific game and stuff. And I know there's lots of people that have a constant warfare between 3 and New Vegas. And I hope you guys just all sit down and realize that we like the different games, that we're going to have favorites for different reasons, and that the core of this discussion is Fallout. This isn't a Fallout 4 podcast. This isn't a Fallout 3 podcast. It's just talking about Fallout and that universe. And so with that long introduction out of the way, I say we use this episode to kind of hop into what we know so far for sure about Fallout 4 coming in a week. The game will be arriving in a week, and then we'll use next week's discussion to talk about the things that we may be speculating on, which speculation is getting less and less because people have their review copies and things are getting confirmed, but there's only so much we can talk about. And another quick disclaimer before we go any farther is we won't be discussing any story spoilers here beyond what's been revealed in trailers, demos, official coverage, etc. Anything here that we talk about as far as story goes is either in those trailers or is pure speculation. You're safe here. There's no. We didn't look at the trophies. We didn't look at the achievements. We didn't look at anything like that. We haven't been watching any live streams of people that may have been leaking some gameplay coverage or anything like that. Anything that we talk about here is safe information. And so without further ado, unless, Zach, you want to say anything else to introduce the podcast, I say we just hop right into it.
Yep, let's get into it.
With the first big rumor roundup thing, Fallout 4 is real. So in case you didn't know, in case you stumbled across NukaCast and you've been playing Fallout 3 and you've been loving it, hey, good news. Fallout 4 is real, and it's going to be here next week. Zach and I both have our Pip-Boy editions pre-ordered. We are pumped. We actually were able to jump on that just like a week or so ago, wasn't it? Where it was,
Yeah.
I think they posted them on like Game Informer tweeted out like, "Get on it now."
Right, and I'm sleeping in bed, and I just get woken up to you telling me they're back. They're up. You gotta get up.
Gotta
And
get it now. You gotta get
yeah,
it.
and I went back to sleep because I'm like, there's no way I'm not getting the Pip-Boy edition. I can't afford that. Um, Thankfully, you're awesome, and my birthday's coming up, and you said, don't worry, get it, and I'll pay the difference for your birthday. So that's awesome. So
Yeah.
I was able to get one too, but unfortunately, I had the whole misfortune of I went back to sleep when you told me to get up, and I just was like, I shrugged it off,
I should have
and
let off.
then
I'll buy it for you. I should have been like,
yeah, yeah, that's all right. But I get up eventually and check it out, and unfortunately it was only the PC or Xbox that I could get, and I definitely wanted to go PC just for the reason of the case being like PC usually has a much more generic case that's just more of the cover of the game and especially Xbox usually has
well, it's gonna
just
be the
that
steel case.
that green. Yeah, it does have just like a slip cover I noticed, but um and yeah, but I don't know. I wanted to get the PC just also in case I could one day play it on my PC, although I will probably sell it just to make
Yeah,
up
that
because I
that's
can't
that
afford it.
that's a thing. Where if you do want to buy just the PC disc, Zach is here selling his copy.
Indeed.
Because he's gonna be having. I think you're probably gonna go with the digital version of the game.
Yeah, I was thinking I'll probably preload it so that I
Yeah,
can get it right
preloading
away.
is available for those that want to get the game right at probably depends on your time zone, but it'll probably be midnight on the East Coast is usually how those things go.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
awesome. I love that.
and
Because
so
we get it
yeah,
like an hour early, and it's like
yeah,
so insignificant, but it feels so amazing on
yeah. Well,
the
and then you
night.
have like people in California that like get the game like at 9 p.m. or something. It's just like
Yeah.
they're they get like the whole night to play it and all that. But yeah, I'm gonna be. I have Tuesday is probably my busiest day, which is when the game comes out. But I'll honestly probably skip most of my classes on Tuesday, and then Wednesday I have a very open day. I may have to play with the band Wednesday night. We may have a thing we have to do, but and then yeah, then it's just kind of waiting for the weekend, and then that weekend just go to town on it
Yeah.
because I want to be able to do NukaCast that following week with a lot of impressions. And I'm just so scared about spoilers and stuff right off the bat. Like
Yeah, me too.
once
But I'm
once
not gonna rush through the game. I just gotta say I'm not gonna rush through it just to
yeah,
like
not
I'm
not
gonna
to
try and what? I'm sorry, go
Well, I
ahead.
was just gonna say, like, not to talk about it and stuff, like a NukaCast. Like, I don't care, like, if we're like, hey, we're only a few quests in,
Right.
but I want to be able to kind of participate in the online discussion, and I think there will become a point though where I'm just well enough into the universe, and people, I think, will also be kind of cool, where there's just only so much you can share, Like,
Right.
I remember when Skyrim first came out, and I was talking with friends about
Exactly.
that, just in like in classes and stuff, and it was just this happened to me and this happened to me, and that it didn't spoil the experience at all.
Right.
It was simply telling stories. It'd be like sharing someone like a life story with someone. You're like, oh, you just spoiled my life for me. Like, no, that's not going to happen in your life, Like,
Yeah.
and it's just really tailored to the experience. But yeah,
Yeah, that's really
preloading's
cool.
available, and I'll probably be getting that. But yeah, if you do want to buy Zach's PC copy, as far as I know, the PC copy is basically an activation disc. It does have like
Well, does the case itself have like an activation code inside that I could just sell the code, or I
I
wonder
think
if
I think the disc does have some data on it for the sake of like they want to make it make loading pretty quick.
yeah.
Uh, so well you'll have to see like what that looks like. But if any of you are interested, just be aware that it will just be the disc or the activation code. Zach may be willing like to drop it down like $5 or so.
Yeah.
Um, and you basically just get that, and then you wouldn't get the case or anything, and it would just allow him to kind of just be able to sell that off and stuff since he doesn't really need the PC thing. But we don't want to dwell on that too long because we're not here to sell it. If we were at the point with NukaCast that we could give it away, um, then we definitely would. But we need to get a little bigger for that. Um, but moving on though, yeah, we have our Pit Boys editions pre-ordered. Um, and there was a little bit of a criticism online with the Pip-Boy editions that I wanted to address. A lot of people were saying with the recent unboxing videos that it looked pretty cheap, pretty plasticky, very gimmicky. Todd Howard admitted himself that it was pretty gimmicky, but it was just like the coolest blanking gimmick that he knew. And other people are saying that it looked clunky or that it would be hard to play with. My thoughts on that, and I reply to a lot of criticism on those unboxing videos, just personally, is that it is a cheap plastic gimmick. Like that's what it is, but it's all there's the value in the fact that it's a collector's item, and that's a Pip-Boy. Like if you factor in that the game is $60, the steel case is an additional $5 or $10, just kind of in value to have that collector's edition. You have the perk poster, which is included in all the copies, but then you have um, the Pip-Boy box, the Pip-Boy stand. I believe wasn't there something else in there that was like a special value or something, like a little slip inside. I'm not quite sure. And then yeah, just the Pip-Boy itself, though. I mean, you do estimate that the cost of the Pip-Boy then at that point is probably about $30. Which I mean, if I were to walk through Target in an aisle, that would make sense to see about a $30 toy looking like that. Pretty well detailed. The hinges are good from what I hear. And so if you guys do think it looks cheap and plasticky, like just consider that it is a pretty cost efficient collector's item. And the fact isn't necessarily in its quality, like manufacturing, it's the fact that it's a collector's item. And so
Yeah.
hopefully there's a little bit more patience for people. I mean, I know there's just going to be those haters online and haters going to hate and trolls are going to troll.
Yeah.
But hopefully that you don't diminish someone else's fun enjoying getting the collector's edition because they may have a different value in it than the materials used to make it. Like I, for example, could care less what it was made of. It could have been a
Right.
cloth plush Pip-Boy that you put on your arm.
Well,
Like
my
what is?
favorite comment is from Amazon.com. Somebody asked about the Pip-Boy edition. What is the Pip-Boy made out of? Is it just a cheesy piece of plastic that will break in 2 seconds? The answer, no, it's a high quality piece of plastic expertly crafted by the scientists at Vault-Tec. It's sure to endure many harsh environments and even take a beating or two. So I think that I mean it's a high quality piece of plastic expertly crafted by the scientists at Vault-Tec. So it's high quality. It's made by our trusted boys, at Vault-Tec.
Yeah,
We've
I
known them for
mean,
years. It works. I mean, we've gone through several games now with it, and so I think we've seen how durable it is in combat situations and just wandering the wasteland and even swimming through water. So yeah, I think it's gonna be fine.
yeah, I mean, it's gonna be. I actually kind of like that it's plastic because it'll feel comfortable on my arm when I'm playing. Like it's not this big metal clunky rusty thing. Like it's just gonna be, it's
Yeah.
gonna be nice and stuff. And so and I don't I hope that through defending it and through kind of building it up, I'm not discouraging anyone that wasn't able to get it. Like my apologies for those that didn't get it. Like do realize that it is just a plasticky toy and stuff. There's like that balance between not like trying to build it up because it is like something cool to have, but at the same time, like it's not the worst case scenario if you didn't get it. Like you're still a Fallout fan, and it's still gonna be an awesome game. And it's not gonna like drastically change the
I
experience, but
I
it is.
honestly would not be surprised if just like when Amiibo came out, there was a whole bunch of Amiibo on eBay that you could buy that just people had 3D printed and things like that. I would not be surprised if people start because of this app that is specifically coming out for it, if there's a whole bunch of maybe even better made Pip-Boys that
Oh,
appear
yeah,
on the
there
internet.
definitely. I think there already are those out there.
Yeah, so and well, I mean ones that are specifically made to fit your phone into it. I think
Yeah.
that people will make just like Smash and the GameCube adapters and how um, those were so limited in quantity and even still are that there's been several companies now that have come out and taken that marketing opportunity, and made their own. So I think definitely for this Pip-Boy edition, if you missed out, for sure you'll be able to find something that's a little bit lower in quality but still as awesome
And I think people will
or is
sell
better.
them
Yeah.
separately. I think people. I think there's gonna be those initial scalpers online that are selling them for like a few $100s, but I think they're going to start to go down in price, and like you'll even see, like they'll probably start going up for like about $50, which isn't too much for a pretty nice little toy to have alongside the game.
Yeah.
Moving on though, with just the other, just the roundup of what Fallout 4 is, which you probably know if you're listening to the podcast. But we're kind of offering our thoughts on what we know of the game so far. A really big thing that to point out is that the game is current gen only, which is kind of obvious. I mean, at this point, that it's not going to the previous consoles, but it's kind of interesting to point out that because of it being current gen only, meaning Xbox One, PS4, and PC, it's not being held back by the previous console generation, which is one of the few games. It's becoming more common now, but there still are a lot of games that do come back on the previous consoles, and so this will make it really kind of a full.
Like Tony Hawk, for example.
Yeah. But even like, I mean, you look at a game like other open world games like Grand Theft Auto 5, for example,
Hmm.
like that game was designed originally like on the previous consoles and stuff. Like this is developed from the ground up on these next generation consoles. And I think that you can kind of see in the visual effects and stuff that's really showing. There's lots of color, there's the volumetric lighting and stuff, and it's a really next gen, beautiful experience, which is it's really cool. And there had been rumors with the initial website having and the PS3 and Xbox 360 branding on the website that there may be previous generation ports. That's not the case. It's only next gen. And I think there's been some confusion with the next gen or current gen Fallout being really beautiful. Is they've really made the most of color and other visual effects, which make the game maybe not necessarily look as post-apocalyptic as it's supposed to with a game like Fallout 3. But Todd Howard has gone on record to say that there's going to be certain things that really bring up to light the fact that this is a nuclear wasteland. He brought up that there's going to be like these radiation lightning storms that you see that just pass through kind of randomly, and there's really no rhyme or reason as to where they appear. They just like pop up randomly,
That makes
and
sense.
they cause just lots of radiation to come down, and just these lightning storms that apparently look just really, they have a beauty in themselves, but like they really give you that feel that you're living in a place that's just been ravaged by radiation. There's been through the art book pictures that they posted on Bethesda.com, or .net, that there's like the glowing sea is going to be in the game. Is not that's back. It's just that it's there, and it's just like this place that's just been ravaged by the nuclear bombs and stuff. And so it seems like they're really making the most of next generation technology, but
Yeah.
also making sure that this place does look like a nuclear wasteland. But you look at pictures like of Chernobyl. Like I've studied that place a lot, um, and how in recent years and all that they've looked at Chernobyl, and there's a certain kind of beauty and color to that place now, and like wildlife is starting to grow. And animals are starting to return to Chernobyl after all these years of it being basically an exclusion zone, and how that place does have a lot of beauty to it, where it's kind of that Last of Us vibe, where nature's starting to reclaim things. And it seems like Fallout 4 is kind of having that direction where it's like it is the end of the world, but there's a certain beauty with nature coming back and
Yeah.
just reclaiming all that. And then you add in the 1950s style, which has that kind of colorful, rounded paint and texture to everything. It's going to be a really beautiful game. And
Well, it seemed to me in New Vegas they kind of started to make that transition a bit because you do notice a little bit more of plant life and trees and stuff
yeah,
in that game, and just the saturation of the sky is a little bit. They just made it a little more colorful and started to make that transition. It seemed
yeah.
towards now
You
that
don't
you're.
have any mods on color, do you?
I don't believe I have no effects on. I did for a little while have an E and B on because I have to play New Vegas right now on the PC, but the most I may have is, and I don't think I do, is like an HD texture mod. But I know all the roads look like their original textures,
Yeah.
and the sky. I know I just turned the effect on, and I can definitely see how it's like the effect that I had. The mod made it a lot more saturated and look more towards where Fallout 4 is going. And it, but I can still notice how they've been making the shift. And also, just it makes sense to me that they'd have these things like radiation lightning storms because it seemed like Skyrim, I believe, had a like if you were in Whiterun, for example, you just randomly it'd be raining sometimes, or they had this really dynamic weather system in that game
Hmm.
that was really cool, and like sometimes it'd be
The,
snowing or
the Northern
blizzarding, and
Lights would come up and stuff too
yeah,
at certain spots, and
yeah, so I could see them totally taking that to the next level in this, and that's going to be insane to see what kind of cool little clever things that they throw in, just
yeah,
subtle
because I mean it's one of those
environmental.
things where it's like there's gonna be so much, and Todd Howard just happens to mention the radiation lightning storms. Like they
Right.
probably have so many other little things in there though, and like little mutations of nature that pop up that really bring to life that you're living in this apocalyptic land that we don't see in a lot of other maybe like zombie games. Like The Last of Us, for example, has like that whole the cordyceps fungus, but it's not really nuclear wasteland sort of things. And like you have like just zombie modes of other games or Dying Light, where it's like it's never really like really nuclear stuff, where some really interesting mutations and kind of um, Mother Nature affecting effects can happen. And so that'll be really cool to see. Um, Moving forward, though, mod support is coming for both the PC and the consoles. It's coming to PC, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe it's PC and then Xbox One, and then I think PS4 gets mod support last. Um, is the way they seem to be going about it.
It's
Um,
either that or it's either that or PC and Xbox One get it at the exact same time, but
yeah,
I could definitely see that it being PC first too, just because it's still Microsoft kind of exclusive. But yeah, it's one of those.
yeah, I
PS4 is
know.
for sure last.
Yeah, well, yeah, PC would definitely get it first because that's just always been the way it is. Like with
Right.
I mean, it's just because it's always been mods there, and then Xbox One maybe because they're kind of running both on Windows 10, and that could just seem. I think it's like a pretty similar structure, and then yeah, PS4. I think just because of what happened with Skyrim, PS4 and Bethesda just don't have the best relationship.
Yeah.
Um, just because I don't think they got too much support on the PS4. Not a lot of people bought Skyrim or supported Skyrim on the PlayStation console because of what happened, and combine that with the fact that the modding community was so strong with Microsoft. You really, it's weird. It's one of the very few games in this current generation where it's really associated with Xbox. Like a really,
Yeah.
you don't see too many third-party developers um, snuggling up with Xbox right now.
And
It's either
three was a bit that way too, and it just I don't know if you've had the same experience because you've been replaying three a bit, but I've had some moments in that game where the frame rate
oh,
drops just ridiculously,
well,
and it's
I've been
like,
replaying and I've been going back through Broken Steel,
yeah,
and there's just some moments in that where it's just, I mean, or
it
even like
almost freezes the game because it's freaking out so much. Like I had a couple where it was like giant rad scorpions, and they were just it was like so choppy and
yeah, I
terrible,
saw
and
one rad scorpion literally like sliding across the wasteland
yeah,
because his walking animation just wasn't working, or even following Liberty Prime, like that sequence with Liberty Prime, like
yeah,
he's just huge, and like when he's like destroying certain like structures or shooting people, it's just a slideshow of explosions. Like it's just
yeah.
nothing. And so I'm really, really, really kind of worried that Fallout 4 will suffer from any sort of frame rate thing on consoles.
I think, well, PS4 for sure, they've made a much more powerful console this time.
Yeah.
And
And the fact that it's supporting Xbox, like it seems like they got into bed so much with Xbox One. This isn't to start like a flame war in the comments, but PS4 does have a little bit more power, and so as PS4 gamers, I think we may be a little bit safer in that regard. Like it should
yeah,
work.
I
Um,
don't think that we're in store for another Skyrim or anything scenario like that. I really think that, I mean, they had to have taken that to heart and then made sure, done so much testing that I really think it's going to be a good launch for PS4. And yeah, I,
I think the big thing I may go back through and just clear off my save files because I played most of Fallout 3 in New Vegas on PC when I originally played them, and I've gone back to kind of get back in that universe
yeah,
and get the trophies, and I just hadn't played them on a console game, and I'm just not used to that. And I think my big problem right now is that I keep saving and saving and saving, and I think when you have all those save files, it
yeah,
really
that's
starts to
true.
clog it up.
When you dump things off too, that's a big thing. Even in Skyrim and in these older ones, they hopefully fixed it in four, but they'd get save game bloat if you had items just out scattered in the world. Like sometimes they would just remember those locations, and it was kind of get bulky. It's
Hmm.
been pretty crazy how
I drop stuff all the time.
yeah, if you drop a ton of stuff, that is one of the things that they've said will really bloat your save because they keep those items just sitting out there and they like never disappear. And So, and that's what happened to me in Skyrim too, especially after playing the 360, and then I used my save file, I transferred it to PC, which was really cool, and was able to keep playing, but I eventually ended up getting the save game bloat just because of all the items and just how many hours I'd accumulated on that game. But it's also nuts. I was just thinking, like, I just hope, I really think the PS4 is going to have a better uh, frame rate and all stability and everything. And it's just been crazy playing New Vegas on PC after playing 3 on PS3. It's like it's so smooth and
Yeah.
crisp and 60 frames a second, and I just really hope that
And
I'm thinking it's going to be about that good
yeah,
on
well, Pete
PS4.
Hines was saying that it's gonna be locked in at a solid 30 frames per second,
Oh
and
yeah,
it makes me think that they may have been able to do 60 frames per second, and that may have been their goal. But they
yeah.
were probably like, you know what? Either we do 60 frames per second and it stutters sometimes, or we lock it at 30 frames per second and it's always smooth.
Hmm.
And it makes me think that I don't think Pete Hines would be boldly saying it's locked at 30 frames per second if it wasn't really there. I think he'd be either sketchy about the question and not completely answer it, or he just wouldn't address it at all, or would give some sort of PR speak. It seems like when he speaks, like he's speaking pretty much truth, or even honestly, he kind of even speaks like a little bit more pessimistically. Like he kind of said there's going to be no more Pip-Boy editions, for example, and there turned out to be a little bit more, but he was like delivering bad news before it even happened, you know.
Yeah.
And so I trust him in that regard. Speaking of Fallout 3, though, the game has been in development since Fallout 3. Quote, we were a little bit busy with a little game called Skyrim, said Todd Howard at the initial reveal, but it's been getting worked on for the past 7 years through concept art, engine refinements, and more, which is really, really cool that the game has been getting focused for that long. I mean, it's not too unexpected that they would be kind of like, who knows exactly what that means when they say they've been working on it for 7 years, because they can basically be saying, like, developing the logo and how they're going to make the 4 look and stuff like that. Like it could be as
Right.
simple as that, and they could say we've been developing it for seven
Or
years.
like Half-Life 3, where they've said that that team has dwindled down to about 2 people,
Yeah.
just kind of talking about it sometimes.
Getting coffee sometimes and being
Yeah,
like, so Fallout or Half-Life 3, huh?
yeah,
Yeah, like it could have been as simple as that, or just someone hired on as the game developer but not even doing anything. I think a lot of focus did go to Skyrim, but it is interesting that like they were still developing it even in the midst of New Vegas and all that. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, maybe how New Vegas is going to influence 4, since it is kind of going back to Bethesda instead of who is it, Obsidian, right? That
yeah.
did in New Vegas, yeah. And so moving on though. Uh, Fallout 4 will have DLC with a season pass costing $30. It's not going to be a timed release like they've done in the past. It's going to release when it releases on PC, Xbox One, PS4. It's not going to be like an exclusive timed release for Xbox One first or anything like that, which is, thank goodness that they haven't done something like that again. They're kind of like, as much as they've been really supporting Xbox One, at least they're not doing that, because that'd be so awful to have them get like the first piece of DLC first.
Yeah, that would. Or just
Uh,
get an entirely exclusive DLC or
yeah,
something. It would be
that's just, I
ridiculous.
mean, as someone who gets a lot of that with being a PS4 owner, like we usually get the exclusive Assassin's Creed missions or Destiny items or something like that. I I I never take like super like a lot of joy in that though, because I get it and someone else doesn't. Like that's always really silly to do timed release and stuff,
Yeah,
where it's just like, or exclusivity at all,
yeah,
um, where it's not. Like it makes sense for Halo to get that because that actually helps the development of the game. It allows them to really put a lot of money towards that and help push that, and publish the game and focus their energy. But with the timed release, like that's not doing anything. That's just giving some extra money to like filter it out, but it's going to come eventually. I don't know. It's just kind of silly. But yeah, so it's really nice they're going to be getting that season pass. And Todd Howard, I think, or Pete Hines said that it's going to be what you come to expect from Bethesda DLC. So it's going to be like, it's not going to be horse armor. It's going to, or I guess there's no horses in Fallout, but it's not going to be anything like that. It's going to be broken steel, operation, like the Alaska, the Anchorage one. I mean, it's going to be like significant story based, I think, DLC, that really kind of enhances the game. And the DLC of Fallout 3, I hadn't remembered how significant it is, but it's some pretty substantial stuff. And so it could potentially really like make the game a lot bigger than what it's already going to be. Speaking of how big the game's going to be, Todd Howard said he's played about 400 hours of the game
Holy crap.
with. I made a mistake here in the notes. It's 13,000 dialogue lines of dialogue per playable character. The
Wow.
total game has about 111,000 lines of dialogue, I believe,
Wow.
from what I researched.
Yeah, I'm just always blown away by those numbers. I've like heard them a few times and stuff, and it's just like each time I hear them, I'm like, because I mean, I remember because I've played so much Skyrim and stuff, and even three, which is kind of, it's a huge world and New Vegas even, but looking at like how big they are, like quest wise and everything, Skyrim is a gigantic game, and that has about 425 quests we were talking about recently, but I don't know, it's just mind blowing. It seems on the level of Skyrim in terms of size or even bigger in a way, and it to me like especially it's bigger in terms of dialogue, but just that just is awesome to me because I want that equal of how amazing Skyrim was. I want that for Fallout because I just wanted more with like Fallout 3. I just don't want it to end, and there's
Yeah,
still so much to experience. It's crazy with just even how small amount of quests there is compared to Skyrim in Fallout 3, how insanely huge that game is and traveling
yeah.
across the
And
map, and
I found that
it's gonna be
Skyrim had a
nuts.
lot of fluff to it. Like it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like even like kind of doing the companion quest line, like they would what was it? You looked up and there's like 400 quests or something or 600 quests in Skyrim and there's only
Yeah,
like
400.
less than 100 or so in Fallout 3. But I mean, a lot of that was there's a bear in Whiterun, like go kill the bear, and it was like really simple kind of like travel from point A to point B, and there's
Right.
wasn't like it was lots of like repetition stuff where so far in Fallout 3 through replaying that I've realized that it is some pretty unique stuff and some pretty moral interactions where like you really do
Yeah.
feel like you're impacting the world.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Um,
saying. I'm so excited for Fallout 4 to be kind of that matching Skyrim in terms of the content and the size and even being a bit bigger only being in the Fallout world because I think it gives it like that. It has a much more just a human feel to it and just like a realistic possible scenario and just the moral questions you pose and sort of
mhm.
those situations, and it's really cool. And just with how big it is, I'm just so hyped
Yeah,
to
I mean that's just
play it
so much
forever and ever.
dialogue, and it's interesting. Like the dialogue. Speaking of dialogue, it's all voice acted. It's always been voice acted from like the non-playable characters, but the playable characters are now voice acted. And it seems like the dialogue choices are much shorter, offering brief summaries of what will be said instead of a full-out message. This makes sense since the voice actor will be delivering the message, not just the text, and so you like there is an example where you're talking with Piper, who does the public occurrences newspaper, and there's four options. It's like what newspaper? I hate newspapers. I love newspapers, or I don't care. So there's kind of
Go
like the
away.
yeah, go away or something. Well, that was the one for the Vault Tech guy at your
Yeah,
door. Go away. Go like that was like every option and stuff. And like, but if you click like what newspaper, he doesn't say what newspaper. He says what newspaper are you talking about? And if you say like enough space to the Vault-Tec guy, he says, "Is there enough room for my family?" And so you kind of like choose quickly the general message, and
they
then
kind of they kind of did that a bit in like the Walking Dead Telltale games, and it'd be
yeah, I was just
like
about to say that.
it'd be like he'd say something and be like, "Hey man, I didn't," because they'd be always like Lee, like he'd say
Yeah,
like not now, and he'd be like, I don't know, maybe later or something. And it's like, that's not what I meant. I said not now, not maybe later or something.
yeah.
Like, but that
Or
was more
like
Walking Dead would do that. Seems a little bit less here, but
yeah, like or
that
just
always,
like in a really tense situation, like Clementine's talking, and you're like, "Please be quiet," and Lee's like, "Clementine, you better shut up right
yeah,
now!" Like it's like,
yeah.
"Oh no, no, no!" Like I didn't mean
And
for you
she's
to
like,
be
ah!
Lee. But oh man, yeah, we need to do it now. That's our next podcast, Telltale Cast. But no,
Telcast.
yeah, it is kind of frustrating because it's like, yeah, you have those examples. I mean, even with the whole, is there enough space? Like, is there enough room for my family? I'm like, no, I don't care about my family. I want to know, is there enough space for me? Like my big fat character that I made in the custom creation thing. Like, I want to know if there's enough space. I mean, I can see there could be situations like that where you're kind of like, crap, I didn't mean to sound that harsh or whatever. But that still happens, I think, even with the text options, where there's been times where it's just like, even in like the Fallout 3 text, where it's just you can't really read that inflection, or you don't know exactly what you're going to say with that. But you just got to take a pretty good guess, and it seems like they're trying to sum that up even more concisely, but accurately with this display text. Speaking of just kind of the dialogue to close that out, there's an interesting interview with Courtney Taylor, who does the voice acting for the female protagonist, where she said a lot more, and you can find this. I think I don't know who exactly it was. Maybe it was Game Informer that did this interview with her. But one of the biggest things I kind of got was comforting from it was that she didn't do any presuming with the tone, whether it should be heroic or evil. She had simply just raw human interactions and reactions to things. And so, like, it's kind of interesting that you do have options where sometimes, like, for example, with my Fallout 3 character, I am a sick, sadistic freak in Fallout 3 right now. I went through and I killed everyone in Vault 101, including my girlfriend. I went through Megaton and like I went to like my favorite hometown bar and just killed everyone. I went back to Tenpenny Tower and like they're all like, it's a beautiful place to live, and I'm like, I want your tux, and so I shot him in the head. Like I'm very practical in that game where it's like I don't need you to live, but I do need your bottle caps, and so I'm going to kill you. And yet there was an opportunity with like with and the Fallout 3's been long enough now, so sorry, this is gonna be a spoiler. But like with the end of Fallout, like the base Fallout 3 game, like where there's the whole purifier situation, and you need to decide whether or not you save like basically the whole wasteland through the purifier. At that point, it was like I'm not going to be a jerk though, and not save the world. Like this is my dad's dream, I'm going to fulfill it, and so I chose to do the good thing there. Or like when I interact with some people, I am very kind because I do care about certain people. And so because of that, it kind of allows the player to do some pretty sick, messed up things, but also be kind in certain situations. Like you're not locked into one sort of karma area. And
Yeah.
Courtney Taylor was like, I need to make sure I know that because there's going to be some times where I'm going to say something that's very evil, but I'm not an evil person. And so I can't be like, someone's playing the game and it's very, very nice, very, very nice, but then all of a sudden completely shift if they say something evil. Like she said she had to make sure she always had the same tone and the same sort of human reactions, and which is really comforting for some people that may be freaking out that the game's going to be a lot of a different field voice acting. It seems like they're doing very well to honor what the game is supposed to be, which is player freedom remaining number one. Speaking of player freedom, there is insane customization with the character creation systems. There's no series of sliders. All of the NPCs use the same system. And I thought we could maybe talk briefly. Maybe we can talk about this more next week of what our characters will look like. I'm kind of starting to kind of plan that out in my head, what I want to use to make my character. I think I'm going to go with I always go with a beard. I have a beard in real life. And I'm really, really, really hoping that they have the tunnel snakes haircut back.
Yeah.
Tunnel snakes rule. But yeah, do you have any thoughts on the character creation? Like it's so insane.
Yeah, it is. I'm really impressed with it because Fallout 3 and even New Vegas are kind of lame in their character creation. Even like I'm surprised because Oblivion had even. I mean, maybe it's because the characters it's so much more fantasy and you can just do some crazy looking things with like elves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like even in the previous titles of games they've made, there was a little more customization. But this one, for sure, is really amazing. And I usually go with a beard too.
I love
I
that it's
usually
in a
go.
mirror, like,
Yeah,
and through replaying Fallout 3 and even kind of going in like to New Vegas, it's
there's no
interesting that
mirrors.
yeah, well, it's like your preview image for your character is like on a flickering like Pip-Boy screen that's like
Yeah,
constantly like saturations flickering and all that. Like you have no idea. Like
yeah.
I made my character and he turned out to be
Well,
like
and
some sort of black looking Asian when I was all done with it. I'm like, I thought he was gonna be white. Like, but the
yeah,
screen was so green and weird that it didn't turn out that way.
right.
Uh,
Yeah,
and so it's nice that you're like kind of clear mirror and stuff. It's gonna be weird. Like, it's crazy how um, they did like change the way he looked though, and sometimes he looked like an old man, and sometimes he looked like a hobo, and sometimes he looked like this or that, and it's just like he always did sound pretty much the same though.
Yeah.
Like it's always sounded like his voice fit his body, which it's weird how they did find some voice actors that looked like the body no matter what.
Yeah.
But oh, what were you
Well,
gonna say?
Well, I'm just a little bit torn about like because usually in Fallout 3, like the way that it was set up is where, and I don't know if it's certainly I guess not going to be the same way where you're just born and stuff because we've seen how he's got the kid and the wife and everything. So and it's interesting how you start in front of a mirror in normal times because in Fallout
Yeah,
3 you start off and it's already the end. And so usually the way that I go about making my character is thinking about somebody who I usually go with like survivalist beard or like really rough beard
yeah.
and like
Rick
the shaggy
Grimes.
hair. Yeah, I always go with like I'm not shaving out there. I go with and I'm kind of roughened and tough and like just I don't care about like my hair. I'm just waking up, going about. I'm saving the world and doing all this stuff. I
I'm
don't have
saving
time
the world. I
for
don't got time to shave.
yeah. But in this one, I'm gonna be a bit. I was like thinking, man, I wish it was almost like over time you grew a beard or something.
Yeah,
Like
like
they had.
Geralt in Witcher 3 or something, like how his beard is always growing.
Yeah. I was thinking that because it seems like I'm gonna want to in the current time just kind of be like I'm always going for the most immersive thing, so I might end up making my character like clean shaven. He just got out of the shower, or he's trying to
Yeah.
look nice, and or maybe I'll go with like a light shave, or something
He's
like
chilling
that.
with his wife, like she's like right behind him, looking over his
Yeah,
shoulder, like, "What are you gonna do with your face, honey?"
yeah, and maybe that's just how I'll go with it, and then I'll end up like over time just being like, wow, I guess like the radiation is causing my face to like not grow my
Well,
beard
no,
back or something.
there's people in Fallout 3 where you can get different haircuts and
Yeah,
stuff.
that's
I don't
true.
know.
I'll have to do that in the future. That's what I'm
Yeah,
gonna do. That's my plan.
yeah, gotta find someone immediately to like tame your beard, and just all of a sudden you have a beard, and
Yeah.
um, and I don't know if you ever found this person in Fallout 3. There's a person in Fallout 3 where you can change your face completely, and
Oh
I'm
well.
interested to see if that comes back into Fallout 4.
I think I
He
did. I think I may have found them. Are they in Rivet City or?
Yeah, like in
Yeah.
the broken part of the ship, um, and their whole thing is that they reconstruct androids' faces,
Yeah.
or synthetic faces and stuff, and so that's kind of how they make it so it's still lore friendly that they can completely reshape your face.
Yeah.
But that would definitely make sense to be in Fallout 4 with the Commonwealth being right there. In which case, yeah, you can go back and probably change in that way and stuff. But it's really cool they have that very Sims 4 how
Yeah.
that
That's what I thought.
that character creation was, and I'm excited. I'm going to speak. It's one of those things we talked earlier about how we're not going to rush the game. I'm going to be spending a ton of time because it really seems like they're really pushing these dynamic cameras and stuff with the interaction where you do see your character a lot. Like people always joke where in Skyrim, for example, you spent so much time creating your character, but then you always wore a helmet. It seems like with Fallout 4, it's really encouraging that you don't have your helmet be on all the time, and you have these multi-camera things there. It's like you see your character's face, those critical hit moments where like it zooms in on your face and then shows the face of the other people that you're killing. There's gonna be lots of moments where you see your character in Fallout 4 compared to maybe other Bethesda games, and so I want to make sure he looks good, and I want him to have a nice, solid, thick beard with a tunnel snake swoop. That's my goal. Speaking of customization, there's layered armor and customization in weapons with over 700 weapon mods. Really allows you to play the way you want. And there's layered armor shown over the beginning of the beginning vault suit. And so finally you can wear armor pads over like your pre-war casual wear. And so like you can be wearing that 10 penny suit, but then also be wearing some nice leather cuffs to make it so you can take some beats and stuff, which is really, really interesting, like that they had, excuse me, that you can kind of do that. And I'm wondering what the extent of that will be. I think I've seen some pictures online of um, like the concept art book and stuff, how they kind of plan to go about that. But it's really nice that you're not really necessarily locked into um, one specific look. Like that was one of my big complaints with Fallout 3 was that if you wanted to have the best armor, you had to look like a Brotherhood of Steel guy.
Yeah.
And like I didn't want to look like a Brotherhood of Steel guy. Like I wanted to look like a tunnel snake. I wanted to wear my leather jacket that I took from Butch's dead body,
Yeah.
and wander the wasteland with my sheriff's duster hat and my 10 penny sunglasses and my Tunnel Snakes rule jacket. But if I wore that into a battle fight, like I
Yeah.
would get killed because I didn't have any armor on. And so this allows me to put on maybe some chainmail or metal chunks or something over my body to kind of protect me and give me some extra defense while having the charisma boost of my Tunnel Snakes jacket and stuff like that. And so player freedom seems to be really the big focus here. Anything you want to add to that, or?
I think that's just really cool. It reminds me a little bit of like how Skyrim was, where you could make all these different kinds of armor. It seems like they've expanded on that a lot more, and it's just really cool because yeah, I am also probably one that's gonna do a lot more of that stuff because I really like all the different outfits and just wearing. And often I will also like in Fallout 3, for example, I'll usually take like all my clothes off, and if I have to go like a really far distance, just because it kind of shaves a little bit of time off, and then if
Well,
like
that's
I
true.
do run into somebody, I just quickly go into my Pip-Boy and switch all my armor on. But yeah, usually, but this will allow me maybe to more like wear a comfortable clothing with some layered armor, and then if I run into just like not a super significant enemy and need a little bit extra defense, it'll be nice to have some padding on. And so that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, Moving on, kind of speaking of that customization and player freedom, there's a new thing being implemented into Fallout 4 called shelters. Kind of goes along the lines with Fallout Shelter, the mobile game they have. But with these shelters, you can do terminals, you can have residents at your new shelters. There can be raider attacks, trading routes, and more. And it's very much so inspired by Minecraft. Where kind of now all of those little random pieces of crap you get around the world, whether it be Nuka-Cola trucks or just springs and wires and stuff. You can use those now to kind of mash them all together and make a door and make a house and stuff where you can live and presumably do quite a bit. Like almost
Yeah,
have
it's
like your
insane.
like I
Yeah.
mean
This
and
really this really makes the game, I think, infinitely replayable. This is their kind of thing that's just like, when will this end?
yeah, I mean because you can. I'm assuming there's going to be tons of locations around the wasteland that you can build upon,
Yeah.
and the goal and the ambition to make it so you basically own the wasteland is going to be so hard to accomplish. Where like you have trade routes going, you're constantly defending your places, and I can just imagine so well like going back in there and not even like playing the game for maybe like 5 hours straight, where you don't even get one quest done because you're just establishing your trade routes,
Yeah.
doing pixel art, making your terminals and defenses all established, and just really building up your economy. And it's kind of nice because going back to my sick sadistic freak of a Fallout 3 character, I've destroyed Megaton.
Yeah.
I've killed most people in Rivet City through sneaky maneuvers. So I've planted grenades in their back pockets just for the fun
Well,
of it.
granted,
And
you'll probably kill everybody in your settlement too.
yeah, that's true. I'll be like, okay, guys, welcome to Woodbury.
Yep.
And,
One day you're just gonna go back and just everybody down.
yeah, just plant terminals and stuff. I bet there's even like little traps and stuff you can plant for people and all that. And so I'll probably
Just
have like my
mines
own version
everywhere.
of Paradise Falls where I just have my own slave trade going, where it's just like everyone has little collars on their necks, and it's just like, oh man, the sole survivor's been here. But no, it's gonna be really cool to kind of do that. In the recent week with people getting their copy on the game, there has been confirmed that there's gonna be like notifications that appear if your shelter's under attack, which is really nice that you get that. It makes me wonder like if you're able to establish like your own sort of radio signals between your shelters.
That makes sense.
And so that is really cool if it goes about that way. But really, really exciting to do that and just explore that. And that'll be one of the things that we're going to be talking about in future NukaCast episodes. For those of you that may be wondering how we're going to expand this podcast, is it's going to be lots of discussion of how we're going about approaching our shelters and things like that. Maybe different strategies to make the most of your economy. Um, so that's kind of something that's new. Going on to something that's been returning is the whole special thing, which is strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. That'll be returning alongside VATS, which is what was that? Assistant targeting system. Oh poop! I'm totally blanking on what VAT stands for. I know I've heard it before. Virtual assistance targeting system, I thought it was, or something like that, something along those
Yeah,
lines.
something like that.
This is one of those moments where all you people that are just know more than me can just
Are
comment down below.
cringing right now.
Yeah, just unsubscribe. But VATS doesn't completely stop time anymore, though, with a new option to execute a critical. And apparently, VATS is relatively unnecessary now, with the first-person shooter mechanics being vastly improved. Special also is a little bit different now. In the original games, you got about, I think it was 28 points. No, it was like you had 5 in each when you start off the game, and you could choose to assign like, I don't know, like quite a bit more to each, to like the other perks and stuff. And now you start with 1 in each special stat, and you get to apply, I think it's 21 or something. And so you really don't get that many this time,
Hmm.
um, to assign. So you really have to be like particular. If you want to be a charismatic person, that's really all you can be. I think you can only afford to max out 2 different, parts of your special. And so that kind of makes it cool. That's really immersive, and it really makes that all count. Because it was really easy for me to be like in Fallout 3, for example. I'm a charismatic, intelligent, lucky, strong, perceptive guy.
Yeah.
It's like the only thing I don't have like max out in is like endurance and agility. And it's just like that makes me a little too strong because I can really handle any situation any way I want right off the bat, which is kind of uncool. And it's really nice that VATS isn't completely necessary anymore. It's just kind of like an extra mode to maybe like really land a critical hit, or just kind of for a fun kind of immersive experience, or something unique to Fallout that is supposed to be there.
Yeah,
Um,
sometimes I like it just to use it to, if I want to get a shot in like really quick, it just, I don't know, for some reason it feels like I can shoot almost a little quicker or get a little more time to think about the situation and kind of judge what I'm going to do and plan, my future. Like, like if I'm going to go quickly after this into my Pit Boy and use a item or, things like that. So I've used it, and also just I can't see myself using it that much because of how much improved they've made it, but just like I was thinking I might use it a little more to get an accurate shot of like shooting a gun out of somebody's hand or something like that. But it seems like for the most part I can just aim it at
yeah,
their hand and their arm.
or like those quick moments like you like whip around a corner or something and then just quickly click
Yeah,
VATS. It's just like boom headshot, like
yeah,
just like stuff like that. But it's nice, yeah, that you don't need to rely on it anymore, because of the first person shooter mechanics being improved, which I think we do have some discussion on the first person shooter mechanics later. But speaking of something that returns but maybe feels a little bit different is just the whole concept of power armor. Now it's more of a mech suit. No longer restricted to the Brotherhood or Enclave. There's been some concept art and some footage, I think, even showing off a Raider in some like different parts of power armor, where it's like just like different, like the chest piece maybe. I think there was even some super mutant concept art where it showed a super mutant in different pieces of power armor. And the big thing that makes this different, like something that you don't want to always be in, is the fact that it just slows you down significantly and makes the gun control harder. And the way I kind of viewed power armor in Fallout 4 is that it now seems more, instead of like the really just beefiest armor you can have, it seems more of like a Titan from Titanfall or something, where it's just like those rare occasions where you just want to hop in it and to get like something done significantly, like do some like a big fight with a Deathclaw, but not something that you always want to be roaming the wasteland in. And so it'll be nice for that to kind of have like a different feel and be more of like what it's supposed to be, like the above and beyond power armor, instead of just something that's like a more standard thing to be wearing around the wasteland, which makes sense. And it's interesting. I'm really curious to see how the Brotherhood and Enclave react here in the Commonwealth. Speaking of them, though, the Vertibird is a rideable helicopter-like vehicle which will be returning to the game. Only now it seems like you can ride it much more often than you could. It is reserved for more cinematic moments or just for the Enclave in Fallout 3. Perhaps now it's a new form of fast travel to replace previous fast travel methods, or since you cannot fast travel to places where you haven't been, maybe this will allow you to go to new places quickly, and you use a flare gun to activate it. And so, really interesting. That makes sense once again for the game because it's in the Commonwealth It makes sense for some advanced technology to be really present around here in Boston, since that's where the Institute is. For those of you who may not be familiar with that setting, this is basically where MIT is in our real world. Only a vastly futuristic place of MIT, and so it's just geniuses, 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 which we'll talk about later and probably more next week.
I
With
wonder
our,
if it suggests at all that it won't. I mean, like how Skyrim eventually with Dawn Guard and their DLCs, how when you do a travel like on a boat, for example, you'd go to a completely new area. I wonder if there's any like suggestion that this will take you to a place that's
oh
not
yeah,
accessible on the
beyond the
normal map.
mountains.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah, I wonder if it's something like that. I Oh gosh, I completely blinked. What I was gonna say, like, yeah, I do think it's like gonna do maybe just even like kind of like aerial combat, or you have something like Grand Theft Auto where you can call in a helicopter, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Or you had mentioned Sky. Oh, that's what I was gonna say with Skyrim. How like outside of towns, there's like those people like those horse carriages that you could take to
Yeah.
like go to like certain places like Winterhold. If you hadn't been there yet, you could use that fee to go there without having to walk there, but like you don't maybe have the fast travel unlocked yet. Maybe something like that. And so, interested to see how that goes. And it also seems like there's been other clips, like they have like a machine gun on the side of it, and so maybe you can use it to do some pretty um, big assaults. Once again, kind of like calling it maybe Merryweather from Grand Theft Auto
Yeah.
or something along those lines. Once again, speaking of things that have been reworked that have been in previous Fallout games, perks have now been reworked with there being no leveling cap in the game. Speaking of no leveling cap, you can now play beyond the end of the main story campaign. And if you have like 10 charisma, you can now get to the level 10 perks for charisma. And so on and so forth. And so you no longer need to kind of work your way through the ranks of leveling and all of that. You
You
can
mean
just unlock perks from the get-go.
so there's no leveling cap, like you could be level 300 eventually, or is
The
that what
big
they're suggesting?
Yeah, there's no leveling cap whatsoever.
Wow, that's
Um,
crazy.
the big thing is that I think eventually though I think I may have it later here in my notes. There's like 270 perks or something, or 275 perks I think
Uh-huh.
overall, like including the ranks and stuff. And so eventually eventually you'll fill up everything,
Yeah.
and you won't be getting any more perks, and you won't be able to get any more damage and stuff. But yeah, in theory, I think you could get to like level 275 or something.
Hmm, that's
Because
pretty
yeah,
cool.
but I mean, it'll obviously slow down after a while, I believe,
Yeah, that makes
and just be
sense.
really hard. So you don't want to take that for granted and just start spending it wherever you want. But
Right.
yeah, no leveling cap, no stopping when the story is done. It's you're free. This is your wasteland, which is just so cool.
Yeah.
Um, it just seems like anything they could do to add freedom, they did it. We kind of touched on this a little bit, but the gunplay feels much like a shooter now with help from Doom's developers. Doom is a Bethesda published game, and so that makes sense for them to hop over here and help with the gunplay mechanics. There's some other different mechanics that have been added in with R1 or right bumper being a bash slash power button. I'm assuming to be a melee hit or some sort of special power armor ability. Grenades are now their own button. I believe if you hold down R1, you switch to your grenade. And there's, of course, a sprint button because it's 2015. Games should
Yeah.
allow you to sprint.
That's one thing that I really want on the maybe they'll do somehow with a mod when since mods are compatible, but just I love how in the PC ones you can just press Q and be walking without doing anything, and then you can just work on some other things while you just start walking in a single direction and then give your character a little. And sometimes I've even taped my controller to just
Yeah.
auto walk, but it'd be cool if there was like an auto walk. But I don't think I saw one in the button thing.
Yeah,
There's probably not enough room.
yeah, that was one of the things that got posted and leaked and stuff, which our apologies if you want to know absolutely nothing from the leaked stuff, but that was one of the things where like just I think it was like a Google Glass thing or just someone that had like their previous or like their early release copy was just the game manual had the controls and button schemes, and that was a confirmed thing. And yeah, just nothing that seemed like it was auto sprint or something. But we're running to an hour here.
Yeah.
And there's still quite a bit more in here, these notes here. And Zach, I'm going to leave this up to you. Do you want to talk about the kind of story speculation, or do you want to save that for next week and go ahead and maybe skip on down to just the discussion of companions and all that to really quickly wrap up this podcast, and then next week we can talk about more story speculation.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's save the story speculation so that because I feel I'll have a little bit more to bring to the table to that in the
Next
next
week.
week. Yeah.
All right, real quick, just for a little tease for next week, we will be talking about the lone survivor of Vault 111, and just kind of our thoughts on how that's going to relate to what that's going to look like. That distance between the character creation and the actual you're in the wasteland. We're going to talk about that a lot. I've dug up a lot of information on the Commonwealth through Nukapedia and other things of the sort, and I think we're going to have a lot of interesting discussion for that. Maybe how the railroad will play into things, and the timeline of all of that. Android, Synth, Dr. Lee, lots of stuff to discuss, and there may be some stuff that's revealed in the next week, in which case we'll have to adapt to that, but hopefully we're able to offer some last-minute speculation on that. To close out this podcast, though, with just the cold, hard facts, one more little quick brief information is the fact that you can be male or female. We kind of touched on that with the character creation. And there's just an interesting little tidbit that your child will look like you and your wife. That's a really interesting feature, which I'm excited to explore more about. Once again, stuff we'll talk about next week. Once again, companions will be returning, including Dogmeat, Piper, and Codsworth. And you can be romantic with any of these companions. Well, not any of them. You can't be romantic with Dogmeat or Codsworth. But regardless of gender, you can be romantic with your companions, which is once again interesting. If they do have any sort of technology for baby making, it makes you wonder if you can maybe make babies if you have the opposite gender, or just what that even looks like. It seems like they have some interesting things being developed there. Companions will not die. They simply kneel down in weakness until you jam a stem pack in them, similar to Skyrim, which it was very, very hard to kill your companions in Skyrim. And I think that was a big complaint of Fallout 3 was the fact that like dog meat could die. I have dog meat right now in Fallout 3. I found him last night. Well, my character says he's a boy, but I think dog meat can have babies, and so it's weird. But I haven't had them die yet, and dog meat seems very powerful in Fallout 3. I took down like a whole room of people in Rivet City, so um, Piper is a woman that was revealed in Diamond City. She's a female and runs the newspaper The Boston Wasteland Public Occurrences. And Preston is the leader of the Commonwealth Middlemen, a male leader in brown robes, who's met relatively early on, around level 2, according to gameplay footage. And so it seems like you get pretty quickly into Preston, the Commonwealth, and power armor. And so that'll be interesting to explore. Once again, lots of speculation on the story side of things next week. The world is absolutely huge. We talked about that with the dialogue options, possibly bigger than Skyrim's world. Skyrim had mountains, though, and there's no loading in Boston, unlike the capital Wasteland. The game clocks in at about 28.12 gigabytes. For reference, Fallout 3 was about 3 gigabytes base game, up to 7 with saves and DLC. Skyrim was around 6 gigabytes, and modern games such as GTA 5 and Uncharted are around 60 gigabytes or 50 gigabytes, respectively. So this game is a nice in between, a pretty small compressed size, which is there's been some discussion of that already online, of that maybe being discouraging because it's like, where's all the content if it's 28.12 gigabytes? But the important thing to remember is that a lot of this is through atmosphere, dialogue, and stuff that doesn't necessarily take up a lot of space. A lot of the gameplay is through other mechanics which are more situational based and not necessarily like GTA 5 where it's a lot of the space comes from very specific dialogue and citizen interaction and stuff like that.
Well, and also keep in mind, Skyrim was 6 gigabytes, which is insanely gigantic in
Yeah.
size, and I played 700 plus hours of that game, and I only scratched the surface. I mean, I beat the story, but there was so much left to do, and I could still be playing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
Um, Moving forward, though, the game can be played in third person or first person with dialogue allowing for multicam shots. You mentioned that. The Pip-Boy now has games, so once again, just expanding this game to be just everything. Can do retro gaming, can do all of that. Many common enemies return. with new interesting enemies coming, such as synthetic assaulters and striders. The blood bug is also new. I want to talk about the synth strider and assaulters in next week's podcast when we talk about the Commonwealth and just the whole concept of androids. And we're also going to be talking a lot next week about the whole concept of factions and karma, with the Brotherhood of Steel being back and the Enclave also returning. Personally, I don't like karma. I really enjoy it not being in the Elder Scrolls games, and I think the reputation in New Vegas was good, which you'll have more thoughts on next week.
Yeah, but
The
I like
reputation
karma
thing.
personally.
Yeah, so we'll have some good discussion on karma next week. But for someone who's very, very evil, I'm not the biggest fan of it. Yeah, so I'm hoping for more reputation based.
I just think it makes sense, the system like that, because at first I kind of had this thought of like, nobody's seeing me, why is my karma going down? But it makes sense, that it's just karma works that way, where it's this kind of omniscient sort of godly thing where
Yeah.
even if nobody witnesses you, karma will still come back to haunt you.
Yeah,
So
I thought it was actually interesting to kind of close out. I've been playing Fallout 3, and like I mentioned, I'm really evil, and no one really comments on my evilness, except I went back to Lamplight Caverns the other day,
uh-huh.
and I went up to a kid, and they looked up at me, and they just said, "Why are you evil?" And it was the first time someone commented on how evil I am, and a little girl just looked up at me, and she was like, "Why are you evil?" And I looked back at her, and I was just like, I don't know. And she was like, "I think it was because you never had a mom." And I was just like, oh, that's like some heartbreaking
Yeah.
stuff. And it was crazy. Like I had this whole conversation with her, and she was like, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, "Well, I'm here to save the wasteland." And she's like, "Are you saving the wasteland?" And I'm like, "I really don't know. I feel like I'm destroying it." And she was like, "Well, I hope your story has a happy ending." And it was just like really cool how
Yeah.
I know this conversation only happened because of my karma,
Yeah.
and it was just really cool how it was a little kid. And it was kind of added that, like, because I had the same thought where it's like, how would anyone know? And no one really had comments on my karma besides like Fox and stuff, like just the companions and all that.
Yeah.
Most people just assumed I was the hero, and the Brotherhood was praising me and stuff. But then this little girl just called me out on it, and it was like,
Yeah.
"You're a really evil man, but I hope you become good." And I was like, man, this is a great game. Like, that's just
Yeah.
so cool how I'd been playing it as an evil man, but then this little girl comes along and just drops straight conviction on me. Just, so yeah, that, I guess, I don't know. We'll have more to talk about that when we talk about the speculation side of things next week. But crazy how long this podcast went.
Yeah.
It, I don't, I feel bad. You've been kind of quiet over there. Hopefully, it hasn't been too long, but I did want to kind of cover the bases and stuff and
Right.
cover what we knew so far and kind of give our initial thoughts. But next week we'll really start to dive into our own personal opinions of the game, as far as speculation goes. And then the week after that we'll have impressions. And then the week after that we may have a really, really special guest. Or in the upcoming months we may have a really, really cool guest that you guys are going to want to hear and talk to, or listen to at least. And so I think we have some really cool plans to come with NukaCast, and we just kind of had to get this first episode not necessarily out of the way, but really kind of establish our footing with what we're going to be talking about in the future, and kind of get some things out of the way, our initial impressions and stuff of everything we learned so far,
Yeah.
because it's been a busy year with Fallout news. And
Yeah.
so I hope you guys do enjoy, and if you thought maybe this was a little redundant with all the news that's already been talked about and discussed, I hope you realize that this was kind of just like our pilot episode of establishing things. We'll be about a half hour in the future, hopefully, and just going to have a bunch of discussion going on. And if you have any suggestions or comments that you want to leave down below, go ahead and leave them. I will take all that to heart and adjust that in the future. But Zach, anything you want to say to close us out, or?
It was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this game so much. I'm so hyped, and I'm looking forward to like actually getting into the beef of it once we actually get it and start getting DLC and can actually. I'm just so excited to have some really fun discussions I think we're gonna have, and so yeah, I'll see you next time.
Yeah,
NukaCast,
thanks for
peoples.
listening, children.
Yeah.
This is NukaCast. All right. Yeah. In case we don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, good night. NukaCast.
NukaCast.
Ow!